Autopsy migrant child who died in U.S. custody had infection. Houston, a 7-year-old girl from Guatemala died of a bacterial infection while detained by the U.S. Border Patrol, according to an autopsy released Friday, in a case that drew worldwide attention to the plight of migrant families at the southern U.S. border. Jacqueline Macan died December 8, just over a day after she was apprehended by Border Patrol agents with her father after entering the U.S. illegally. Jacqueline was to die. The report from the medical examiner in El Paso, Texas, says traces of Streptococcus bacteria were found in Jacqueline's lungs, adrenal gland, liver, and spleen. The autopsy said the medical examiner did not determine which form of Streptococcus bacteria Jacqueline contracted. Kraft said the type of infection Jacqueline had would have likely caused initial symptoms that a medical professional would have caught, like an elevated heartbeat, respiratory rate, or problems with blood circulation. Dr. Matthew Gartland, a pediatrician and member of the advocacy group Physicians for Human Rights, said that while it was difficult to determine whether more rapid treatment would have saved Jacqueline's life, Jacqueline was not hospitalized until 12 hours after she and her father were apprehended, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. CBP said Jacqueline and her father, Nery Gilberto Calcuz, were in a group of 163 migrants who were apprehended at about 9:15 p.m. December 6. Jacqueline and her father boarded a bus at about 4:30 a.m. December 7, the bus arrived in Lordsburg about 90 minutes later, CBP said. By then, she was flown to a hospital in El Paso, where CBP says are increasingly heading to remote areas of the borders such as rural New Mexico, where it has very limited facilities or staff to apprehend and care for them. The agency the Border Patrol said this week that it would release families immediately instead of referring them to processing, a step the agency said was necessary to relieve overcrowding in its facilities. CBP declined Friday to comment on the autopsy report. Commissioner Kevin Advocates have criticized CBP for its treatment of migrant families and for portraying their growing numbers as a crisis. They have long warned. Kraft, the former head of the American Academy of Pediatrics, said she had spoken with McAleenan since the 2 child deaths and said the agency had made progress in making sure sick children are quickly taken to a hospital. Races, a group that provides legal services to detained immigrants, tweeted on Friday Tekendi Paniagua, the Guatemalan consul based in Del Rio, Texas, said his office had spoken to Nery on Friday and that he would continue.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot bar. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park.